probably the first time you walk in, you don't know where to look because there's posters on the wall and there's bins of records and then there's stereo equipment and you're like, what the heck's going on here? So you kind of have to orient yourself. So I think it's fun if you're, once you sort of get the lay of the land, or even getting the lay of the land, that process is fun. Exploring a new environment and a new media. If you haven't been into records and getting into that sort of groove, pardon the pun, of collecting. Yeah.
Welcome to Gritty History, a podcast from the City of Hamilton and Hamilton Civic Museums, taking you beyond the physical museums and diving into the fascinating stories from the city's past and present. In this audio series, we'll explore the people and places that make Hamilton, Ontario so special. Our first series, Liner Notes, digs into the work of Hamilton music. My name is Meredith Leonard, and I'm a senior curator at Hamilton Civic Museums. Joining me for this series is Russ Piva, aka Stereo Russ, musician and host of Inside the Music with Stereo Russ. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's press play. So today we're entering the world of the local record shop, joined by Mark Furukawa, aka DJ Mark, and founder of Dr. Disc Records in downtown Hamilton. Mark has been a central figure in a city's music scene since opening the record store in 1991. A seasoned DJ since his teens, Mark holds several DJ residencies across the city and has expanded his shop to include DJ-focused AV gear rentals. Today, he continues to be deeply involved in the music community, proudly serving as a cultural ambassador for Hamilton's vibrant music scene. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
To start off, Mark, why don't you give us a brief history of Dr. Disc here in Hamilton?
Well, it's funny we're interviewing in the CFMU studios because one of my launching points was volunteering at Radio Western. So I came from Barrie, small town, pretty conservative, and discovered my love of music in high school, started DJing with friends. And I went to Western, not for academic reasons, but just because all my friends were going there. That was my sort of career path because I didn't have one. So all I knew is I had to keep going with my DJing and my love of music sort of as a side hustle, I guess you'd say, but it eventually turned into a full-time hustle when I was in London at Western. So I became immersed through CHRW and through DJing in the city into the music scene. And because I was DJing, I had to get the best records and the newest records, and the best store for that was Dr. Disc, which originally was a small family-owned chain, which started just with one really tiny store. I think it was 1983 or 82, 83 it started in London, Ontario. And then business was so good due to the response of them having really unusual imported product. They expanded to a larger location, and that's sort of when I came in. I remember first entering the store, I was introduced to it by a DJ who worked at Radio Western that I'd connected with. And he introduced me to the store, and they were still sort of like creating displays and getting product out. It was that new. It hadn't really fully moved over yet. And so that's when I sort of started hanging around there. And I hung around there so long that they said, hey, do you want to help move these boxes? Do you want this, work part-time? So I started part-time. And I just loved the environment so much and the people I was meeting so much that it became more of a full-time job. And along with DJing, I was, DJing a couple nights a week. And my academics shrunk in proportion to that. And I limped through my 3-year BA. It took me 7 years to get, but I finally got it. And that was my time spent in London. And then the family was expanding at the time. The son of the father who had founded it, his name was Andrew, decided to expand the business. He was an accountant, and he's like, okay, one location works, we can expand the business. And so we sort of chose different cities with a good university or college demographic, and sort of surrounded Toronto. So we had, there was Kitchener, Waterloo, Windsor, St. Catharines, and the last logical spot on the map before Toronto was Hamilton. And it coincided in 1991 when I got my special 7-year BA that they offered me the managership in Hamilton. And that's sort of where I came here. I'm just like a musical leaf in a stream, and I just kind of saw these opportunities as I was meandering down the stream and chose Hamilton. And it was really funny because people in London, a lot of my friends I said, oh, I'm going to Hamilton to open a new Dr. Disc, and they're like, Hamilton? What the heck are you going? They didn't say heck. What the heck are you going to Hamilton for from London? But when I came to Hamilton, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Actually, the people here are the most genuine, and I can't say for across every vocation or every segment of the population, but as far as the music community goes, 99.9% of the people I've met here, whether it's through music retail or creators or live venue owners or whatever, have been really the most active and inclusive musical community I've ever experienced anywhere. So I'm really, I thank my lucky stars I made that non-decision to come to Hamilton to open Dr. Disc. So that's where I ended up in 1991.
Can confirm the music community here is just so lovely.
It really is.
We started this exhibition and we are not of the community, but everyone's been so welcoming and so generous and just so passionate and enthusiastic about what y'all do.
Well, you really jumped in. Like, you were open-minded and eager. And I think with that open-mindedness and the willingness of the community to share not only contacts, but anecdotes, product, materials, that you approached it in really the right way, as not like someone elitist, like, oh, we're putting together an exhibition. It was more like, can you help us build this thing? And I think people will, I'm not saying that the community is not generous and kind in nature, but they're just, the way you approached it to elicit aid was like just the perfect tone. And people want, you're right, people want to help. Generally in this city, they really want to help someone, whether it's for information or getting a gig or any other inquiry in the music industry. They just generally want to help. And I think maybe that's partially because we've always been sort of the underdog and in the shadow of Toronto. And when I came here, it wasn't a great thing to be from Hamilton. I knew a lot of musical artists personally who, in their bios, they wrote, "Oh, I'm from Toronto," rather than "I'm from Hamilton." But I would travel, and I've always been inviting the conversation as to what is Hamilton, and where is it, what's it all about. So if I travel and people say, "Where are you from?" I wouldn't say I'm from Toronto. They'd go, "Oh," because they know what it is. I'd say, "From Hamilton." "Oh, where's that?" And so it would sort of invite a conversation. And I think Hamiltonians are like that. They recognize their own. And I'm not saying you have to be from Hamilton to be included. I myself, like I said, I came from London by way of Barrie. So I've been here since the life of the store, which is 1991. But I consider myself a Hamilton adopted son now. But I think as long as you have the best interests of the city and the community in mind, you'll be accepted. It doesn't matter where you're from.
We've been having these conversations and doing research for this exhibition, and your name comes up all the time. Like, you got to talk to Mark. Ask Mark about that.
Just because I'm a dinosaur, I've just been around so long.
And you have all the knowledge. So what do you see as your role in the Hamilton music community? I think like you're a connector, a facilitator, like just sort of this holder of knowledge. Like how do you deal with that?
I think both of those things. I'm a sharer, and I like to share information. I don't think information that can help someone succeed should come at a price. I think it should be volunteered happily. So that's what I do. And, of course, one of the, if not the prime topic I like to share about is Hamilton. So it doesn't matter if you're just talking about music. I'll share my Hamilton experiences, positive and negative, with people. But I would say that just a sharer of knowledge in general. And just because I've been slogging away in the downtown core since 1991, I've seen it change and made connections. And, the connections that aren't reliable or let you down in some way, you just discard, and you kind of keep in your bag of tricks people who have helped you or are helpful and honest and have integrity. So over 30 years, I've got a pretty big bag of tricks. And once again, I'm not afraid to share that. If someone has any kind of question that I can help with, I'll try and answer it. And if not, I'll, my detective hat on, and I'll do a little bit of research. So I think just maybe a facilitator is a great word as well.
You mentioned a couple of times the year 1991, which is a mind-blowing year.
Oh, it sure is.
And I just want to know, how Dr. Disc has evolved since then, and kind of how you've been able to kind of keep up with the times, with the evolving changes in how people listen to media, listen to music, and how the community's changed in general.
Wow, that's a great question that has a myriad of answers. I'm going to try and summarize. But as far as the shop went, we're considered, I think just because of time and the fact that we're embedded here and not going anywhere, I think the that now we're looked at sort of this musical institution. But when we started in 91, the reason we chose the location we're in now was that the founder of Dr. Disc, he was into mortgages. That was a sort of side hustle before he kind of quasi-retired. And so he knew real estate. But the thing that he really championed, it's like he always said, you want to become a habit in a sense that you want to be amongst other record stores. So because people are creatures of habit and they go to, back in the day it was Sam's HMV or whatever. And then if Dr. Disc pops up, they'll go there with it if it's in walking distance. So at the beginning, we were one of many downtown. I think there were 7 or 8 stores within a mile radius of us. And that's where we wanted to be. We wanted to be amongst the action and become an established point on that route. But it's not nearly as intensive as it was back in 1991 downtown. So when we started out, like I said, there were, it was the era of chain stores back then, and we were this little independent. There were a couple other independents around when we opened, but basically we're like this punk rock outsider store. So it was word of mouth, and that was our biggest advertiser, and still is. It's word of mouth that spread, and we didn't do any like huge glitzy ad campaigns because honestly we couldn't afford it. And it was just through goodwill and, as we discussed earlier, helping people that we started to grow. But at first we're like punk rock. We just didn't, when you're just trying to get a leg up, you don't really do anything by the book per se. And I don't think we, like, I'm not saying we did anything illegal, like sell stolen goods or something. It was more like, okay, we want to have a concert on our lower roof. What's a permit? I don't know what you're talking about. So we just have a concert on our lower roof, and it was just to create sort of a buzz. It wasn't like we weren't making any money off it. The concerts were free when we started, but that was something a young fledgling record store would do. That was our advertising in a sense, is to create some noise downtown for an hour and have a band play, local, of course. We always promoted local talent, and we'd have a rooftop concert. So that was, but now, like you said, it's fast forward, and now we're, Hamilton's longest running record store. So we're kind of like this anchor point now, which I'm so proud of. And the second part of your question as to how music's been consumed, it's just night and day. Just nobody could have predicted the route it would have taken to get to this point from the way it was back in the day. So, vinyl is our trademark these days, and thank God, our founder chose Dr. Disc because it went from vinyl disc, which is what it was named for, to CDs.
Yeah, if it was Dr. CD, yeah. I don't think it would have.
Yeah, we would have had to put a little star there,
and other things.
Yeah, something like that. But it works for both. So back in the day, it was 91. I think CDs came out. The first commercial CD was 83 or 84. So CDs were taking over the marketplace, and vinyl shrunk to 10% of our sales floor. It was just relegated to sort of a corner in the basement as we, seeing CDs took up more and more real estate in the store, the retail space. And then technology comes around. You had downloading and Napster, and those were some lonely years because, most of our clientele, I think, is aged. The demographics moved up with people who are into music and gotten older, and they understand vinyl and the joy of collecting a physical medium like records. But back then, I would say our 75% of our customers were like 16 to 24, that kind of thing. So as soon as downloading hit and they could sit at home and not go out and music was free, just download stuff, it was like, took a big hit for a number of years there. So had to dip into the, inheritance to keep the store open literally for the better part of 10 years. It wasn't pretty. But, we got through that, and then people realized, to me, I understand that digital music and downloading is a convenience, and I don't behoove anybody who, consumes their music that way because, they're driving and they want, they're streaming, they've got it on their phone. But I certainly do appreciate people who like and respect a physical medium. So it's like film. It's like everything's digital these days. But, there's a resurgence in old style cameras developing film. And it's part of the process that makes music valuable as well as film. When you develop a picture yourself, there's so much more invested in that finished photo. And it's the same thing when you're listening to music on vinyl, and so many people get this, that it's an active pursuit. It's not just something streaming on your phone endlessly, and it kind of blends into the background. It's like you have to, if you're listening to on a vinyl format or a CD format, you have to put that record on when the side's over. You have to turn it over. So you're actively paying attention to what you're doing and paying attention to when you're listening, or not a term I like, consuming music. But that's part of the reason that people have understood that the importance. The sound quality is different too. I'll give it that. Whether it's better or worse is up for debate. I think it's personal preference, but it's a more active pursuit and a more valued pursuit. It creates a value when you listen to records, and it's a social thing rather than having music streaming in your phone and your headphones. It's a social thing. You tend to share music on vinyl with friends who come over. If you're having a party and you put a vinyl on, we had a big sort of spike one year, I just remember, of turntables selling after Christmas, New Year's. I'm like, well, why are all these people all of a sudden buying turntables? It's not Christmas anymore. And they're like, oh, we were just at a New Year's Eve party. And this happened. I think there were 2 or 3 people within a couple of days who said, I don't think they're at the same party, but they said the host had a turntable and we all took turns picking out records from his collection and putting them on the turntable. And that wasn't the fact that music sounds better on vinyl, or I prefer vinyl, I'm a vinyl collector. It was the fact that socially it was this inclusive, fun thing to share music with each other that propelled these people to buy turntables. So that's kind of neat. So that has sort of brought us back in a sense. Nobody anticipated vinyl coming back to the extent it has. And to be quite honest, a lot of corporate people didn't want it to come back. They would much rather have no middlemen, which we're technically a middleman between the music creator and then the end user. So we're a middleman in the sense that the record companies have to make this product. They have to spend money, labor to make it, ship it to a distributor. The distributor sends it to us, and then we retail it to the customer. They would much rather eliminate all those steps, have the creator give them digital files, and just then they're out on the internet. They don't have to deal with anything, just rake in the profits of people who download that item or access that item. So, we're not supposed to be here anymore in the scheme of record or music corporate things. But once again, whatever sells, they'll capitalize on it. So, they're like, okay, I guess people want records now, so we'll sell records, which is sort of the tail wagging the dog in a weird way.
If you're enjoying this conversation, you might want to check out the Punching In exhibition, which explores the work of Hamilton's music scene, on display at the Visitor Experience Center, located at 28 James Street North, throughout 2026. Now, back to our conversation. My favorite part of coming to Dr. Disc was you get a turntable repaired, but there's also a conversation, and then you also get to look through music and flip through the records, and it's sort of like this wonderful, this is like a choose your own adventure. This is not the algorithm telling me I like this. This is me getting to see what's out there.
It definitely is.
And so it's sort of having that physical space to talk about and think about music in it's a consumer way, but there's also a real community connection to it. It's
a human contact. So, you can get any algorithm suggesting something you might like off a playlist, but sometimes you go in a store and you're like, it has nothing to do with what you listen to, the music that's on, and you're like, what is this? This is amazing. So, in a sense, the staff, whoever's putting on the music, sort of, you're almost like you're coming into our rec room or living room to listen to music that someone else is putting on for you. You don't have the choice of listening to what you want in the store. And sometimes that's a good thing because it makes you go in a different direction totally. And you're right about the store is multifaceted. And over the years, the staff, myself and the staff, the 2 main staff members I have on have been with me for decades now. And so they not only know the ins and outs of the store, but their knowledge base has grown along with their tenure at the store. So, they can suggest things, whether it's, what stylus should I buy for my turntable or what turntable should I buy? They're educated and they want to help. They're not just there to sell a turntable. They're there to get you the right turntable for your situation. There's that level of integrity and knowledge sort of combined, which is great. So yeah, you're right. No matter what you come in for, I mean, there's eye candy, there's all kinds of different formats. There's like, we still sell cassettes and CDs and DVDs. So product wise, yes, that way we sell equipment, we rent equipment. So there's all these different facets to the store that people may not know about. But once they get to know the store, and we act as educators too. Before it was like, it's interesting that customers shift in a sense. Like when I started, everybody knew what a record player was. Everybody had a record collection or a CD collection. But now it's like, the younger generation or even slightly older people who have never owned a turntable, it's more of an educational thing. So once again, it's a sharing of knowledge where, how do I store my records? Should I clean them? How do I set up my turntable? Is this a good turntable? Is that a bad turntable? So now it's more of an educational process too, where you have to get to know the customer in a sense that of their level of experience with the music and the format, and then guide them, as best as you can to make their, I guess, listening experience the maximum amount of enjoyment they can get out of it. So it's changed. It's definitely more intensive rather than everybody knows what a record store is. You just go in, you do this, you do that, you buy a record, you go. So we get a lot of people, and they're kind of like, just like you were probably the first time you walk in, you don't know where to look because there's posters on the wall and there's these bins of records and then there's stereo equipment and you're like, what the heck's going on here? So you kind of have to orient yourself. So I think it's fun if you're, once you sort of get the lay of the land, or even getting the lay of the land, that process is fun, exploring a new environment and a new media. If you haven't been into records and getting into that sort of groove, pardon the pun, of collecting. Yeah. So that's another way that the store's changed too, and it is a really fun place to come into and shop.
It's a really inviting way of describing it because I know even for myself, who's like a big music fan, musician, etc. It's like even I feel that overwhelmed, And so for anyone listening out there who hasn't been to a record shop, maybe feels intimidated, like that that's a part of the experience and the fun, and it's like it's a welcomed feeling, I guess.
We've always prided ourselves as the Switzerland of record stores. So, and what I mean by that, like ethically, we'll sell anything, any kind of music, as long as it's not hate-filled, violent, violence, enticing or incentivizing. We don't care your religion, gender, height, color, where you're from, anything. Music is sort of like the common denominator of the store. As long as you're a music lover or appreciate music, you're more than welcome to come in the store. And it's funny you say like the cool store or whatever. I'm paraphrasing you, but people are intimidated by independent music stores in a sense. So when we started out as being this kind of like this ethically sort of a punk rock, store that wasn't super clean, like an HMV and blah, 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 and sort of homemade and slapped together. Well, there was one artist who's a folk artist, and we take local music on consignment. And we always welcome any kind of music as long as it's a physical medium to bring it in the store, and we'll try and sell it for you. So this one artist, it was based on a customer demand. Do you have this artist? I'm not going to name her in case she's embarrassed or something. But they said, do you have this artist, a folk artist, a local artist? And no, we're not. So we researched her, found out, contacted her, got her to bring in stuff. And she said, when she was dropping it off for consignment, she said, I didn't think you guys would take my music because you're such a cool store. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with the cool factor. I mean, if it's Hamilton music, you're automatically cool, right? Like bring it in. So that was a funny exchange. And we'd never tried to give that sort of like, I don't know, Empire Records vibe, like exclusivity vibe to anything where the opposite. Where if you come in, hopefully we're welcoming if you catch us on a good day. I'm just kidding. But, the conversation doesn't have to be about music. We don't even care if you come in and don't buy anything. I mean, that's the ultimate goal to help us survive. But if you come in and you're just walking by just for a browse or something, or just to chat about the last concert you're in, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, the key is that you appreciate music and appreciate that we're there at the same time, hopefully. And that's the kind of customer we court. So, yeah.
Yeah, I did not feel cool enough to come in a store, but when I did.
See, now you're all welcome, right?
And it's so fun. And I've told everyone, like, it's such a fun experience.
Great. Yeah, it is.
And it's such a great conversation, and it's a Hamilton institution.
Yeah, thank you so much. Too dumb to quit, as I would say.
Yeah. And a quick plug for you local musicians out there to drop your stuff off.
Yeah. We take up to 3 pieces of any kind of format of what you have. So if you have an album that's released on CD and vinyl, bring it on in. Any kind of physical format. Cassettes we take 7 inches. If you're making your own CDs, we've had people make their own CDs. Just try and make it sort of look professionally done rather than just like handing us some CDRs or try and do some artwork or something. But we take any kind of consignment for especially local product, but if you're from Toronto or Detroit or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can drop it off up to 3 copies of each. We'll rack it for you and try and sell it for you in our local section if you're from Hamilton. And we always feature for any local artist, we do a standalone post across our social media platforms to promote that specific release and put you in we do every Friday, we do sort of new release roundup videos, and we'll put you in that as well to try and give you maximum exposure. And then, we'll write a little blurb for you, or if you write a little blurb for us, we'll post it along with the image, and we'll try and sell some music for you.
We're starting to plan the opening event for our exhibition, and we sort of were surveying people for inspiration.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, we should do something like Dr. Disc's midnight release parties. And so like that is a vibe that is out there in sort of like an event style. Could you tell us a little bit about those? Like that's people.
So back in the day, how it used to work in industry was that new releases would come out every Tuesday. Now it's shifted to Friday just because, well, let's take it from the start where the Tuesday was technically the slowest day in the retail week for music retailers. So they said, okay, we'll have the new releases come out on a Tuesday, which kind of forces somebody, before downloading was a thing, it would force people to come and buy the physical product, which is the only way you could consume or access the new band's release that you wanted to get. So it shifted to Friday. And what we used to do back in the day for major releases, I remember we did like Rush, Tragically Hip, Wu-Tang Clan, that kind of thing. If there was this big album dropping, you're technically allowed to only sell releases on what's called the street date or release date. So if the release date was a Tuesday, technically the Tuesday comes at midnight the night before plus 1 second. So we used to do midnight release parties for major releases. And now that's kind of happening again with support from the labels. So what they're doing is times they allow you to sell it Thursday night, which is great because we can do a listening party after we close. We close at 6, so we'd have a listening party from like 6:30 to however long the album was. So sometimes you could just do a listening party, but you weren't able to sell the product until the next day. So, but what's happening more and more is they're doing for mostly independent stores that participate in the listening parties, the labels are allowing you to sell it when you have your listening party, which is doubly exciting. So not only do you get a special advance link to or a record send ahead to play at the listening party, but you also get to sell it in advance of other stores who aren't doing a listening party. There have been a couple of times, the latest Lo-Fi release and latest Ethel Cain come to mind, where the store's been just packed full of people, and they'll come down on a Thursday night and then listen to the album. And it's great because it's sort of the same vibe that you get when you go to see your favorite performer live. Everybody in the room is into that performer just as much or more as you are. And so it's like this room full of like-minded people, all sort of the same vibe. And that's what the listening parties have been like. So we've got a small store. We can fit, maybe 40 people in there maximum, but sometimes it's been rammed. And it's really fun. And I love it because even if we can't sell the product, you get people down. We'll do giveaways and things like that. So they'll have what's called value-added stuff like posters, keychains, branded stuff for that artist. So people will come down, prepay for that, even we can't sell it or they can't pick it up till the next day, but at least they get the posters and things like that. So and sometimes it's just like this, not to sound cliche, but there's so much love in the room. It's just like everybody's just like listening and whispering amongst each other because they don't want to, if something's playing, and we set up extra speakers and things like that. So it's almost like a mini house concert in a sense. And it's really, really fun.
It's so fun to sort of experience music as a community. And maybe
sure
you don't
is.
have the money to
Yeah.
go to a concert, but
Yeah.
that's a really lovely way to experience and listen to music with other like-minded people and just have a good night.
Well, flipping it back on you guys, like just the fact that I don't know if it was your brainchild or whatever, but to have a year-long exhibit promoting music, and I understand that it was coincidental to the Junos happening and other things happening next year, but it's just like the sustained visibility and accessibility to a really well-curated exhibit featuring music. It's like it only helps the community and of course the store as a result, just having the music in people's consciousness and recognizing not just generic music, recognizing the local community's musical talents, past, present, and future is like just a remarkable undertaking. And so, yay! Applaud whoever figured that out.
Our colleagues in tourism events and tourism culture for the city. They've been great supporters.
It's great. It's like it's the special event, and everybody's taking their part and having their own little say in the curating of it and building this thing. And I think it's fantastic.
And I mean, we couldn't do this without the music community. So the fact that it exists at all is a testament to everybody's enthusiasm and dedication and generosity.
I think you're right. There's no database you can just access and just like, tell me everything about Hamilton music. You have to rely on sort of the oral history of people. And, people are naturally collectors of things. So I know you're in contact with a few people who have old gig posters and stuff. That stuff would be lost to just a time and, word of mouth, but to actually have access people who have physical gig posters from, 20, 30 years ago is just amazing. So, I mean, that's part of it. Like, I think it's visually and physically bringing that historical aspect into plain view of people. They can just walk in and sort of see and access all of this information and music that might be lost to space and time and never be seen again. So I think it's kudos. That's great.
You've mentioned quite a few people already in this podcast, but a question that we've been asking to all of our guests is...
This is like, what's your favorite food time, right? Something like that?
It is, actually. But replace food with Hamilton musical artists.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
Or maybe some that have been notable that have stayed out over the years.
I guess to properly answer your question, there have been certain Hamilton artists that I've come across, and for different reasons that I respect, just for their integrity and just for always having that Hamilton essence and be proud. They've been proud to share with everybody that they are from Hamilton. So, the top one for me, just as far as longevity and going down the dark tunnel and coming out the other end, is Tom Wilson. And so as far as a contemporary music figure who has this historical weight and, he just recently found out that he's Indigenous, and he actually got bestowed a Native Indigenous name. He's really embraced that. He didn't know, he just knew, if you've read some of his memoirs, he knew that there was some sort of hidden things in his past, but when he discovered he was of Indigenous origin, he's just embraced it. And so along with this, and it's affected his music. So, I mean, he started out basically as a punk rocker, for lack of a better term. And now he's doing this, not only he's doing some really ambient stuff to accompany, he's a multi-talented artist, to accompany artist exhibitions that he's done for his painting, and he's collaborating with his son, and he's done some really beautiful soundscapes to accompany that. But his music's also very roots-oriented. He's delving into his Indigenous roots through his music, and he's got sort of, the blues rock kind of jammy stuff of like Black and the Rodeo Kings, for example. So multifaceted artist, but with music at his core. And he's a lifer here. Like, he's been, doing music since, mid-70s or something. So late 70s. So you're talking about, it's just one individual who's invested not only in the city, but in his art for the last basically half a decade. Like, that's insane. That's crazy. Like, the store's 30 something years old, and we're just like, not that we don't play as active a function as Tom. We're a facilitator too, but we're not like a creator. We don't create the music in the store. We get music that people want, but Tom actually is this creator, and he's never wavered on coming from or living in or being part of Hamilton. So that's sort of the top of my list for, I guess, a Hamilton music renaissance man, I guess you'd say. But There are a couple other bands. I really love the raw energy of the Dirty Nil. And I've known those guys since they were, snotty-faced kids coming in. The records are, 17, 18. And, they've grown to be a sort of this worldwide. They've toured the world over, a number of times, and they just keep grinding away. I love that. One band that just comes to mind that really, I watched them grow from just when they were really, really young. They're defunct now, but there's a band called New Hands, and they took their inspiration from sort of 80s, and unknowingly, it's funny, they're much younger than I am, so their influences were influenced by 80s. So they weren't familiar with the core original music that influenced them through their artists that they liked that influenced them, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like one step away, arm's length away from the actual music that they drew a lot from. But these guys were independent, and Brody from Casbah, who used to own the Casbah venue, turned me on to them. And I love them. They released a full album and one 7-inch single. But and then they just, started going to post-secondary stuff and just got their own lives going. One's still in town, Gord Bond. He's a really well-known Hamilton artist, painter, and he's still in town. But, it's like it happens with a lot of Hamilton bands there. And that's the reason for your curated exhibition is sometimes they just release one great album and they're gone, or not even an album. They produce some great music and they're gone. So circling back to the punching an exhibition that you've got coming up or exhibit, it's super important to curate and retain information or the actual music of a certain band that may otherwise be forgotten. And then as far as other Hamilton artists, the most accomplished pop act, you're looking at Arkells, who just, their blend of soul and pop, it's a really unique voice. And not only is the band named after a Hamilton street, but they never forget their roots. They play the UK, they play wherever, and they're always, one of their trademarks is being from Hamilton, and they don't do it in a way to exploit the city. They're just so proud of it, and the success they totally realize the success that they've achieved is because of the Hamilton community. There's just you get a band that is so exciting in their home city. Sometimes it doesn't translate to other cities, but they've made it so that their, I guess, infectious energy and love of the city translate somehow, and even when they go abroad, they're always about Hamilton, and, whether they're wearing Ticats jerseys or whatever, they always promote. So and the longevity, they started as, sort of a no-name band at Casbah too, and came up through the ranks and just got bigger and bigger and bigger, but they've never forgotten their roots. So I respect a lot of artists, not only for their music, but recognizing that the music, the things that have shaped their music are weirdly, uniquely Hamiltonian in a lot of instances. So I guess my love of certain artists also hinges on their love and representation of the city in a weird way. And you can't get around punk rock if you don't mention Teenage Head, who are just like this iconic band who are on the verge, except for their name. The major labels did not like their name back in the day. And then there was a terrible accident where one of the members broke their back when they're basically days away from like a showcase in New York, I think the story goes, for like these label heads. And, it was at the time where, Ramones and that kind of stuff was hitting, and Teenage Head were collectively one of the best punk bands out there. And unlike other punk bands, they could really play. The songwriting was great. The guitar playing was fantastic. They were such a tight unit, but uniquely Hamilton, with a Hamilton voice. So, I guess those are my sort of tops that come to mind. But then again, I listen to a Jesse Lanza album or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, or Junior Boys or something. Like there's some really unique electronic stuff that's out that is, and not that they're not Hamilton, but that style of music is a lot more appreciated in Europe, I find, overseas than it is in Canada. Maybe it's because of lack of airplay or accessibility or promotion. I'm not sure. But Yeah, there's so much great music coming out of Hamilton, and that has come out of Hamilton.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Totally my pleasure.
And just, keep on being DJ Mark at Dr. Disc.
Always. I really appreciate you guys. And anything else you need, music related or not, just get in touch. And hopefully we'll see you both in the store sometime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was great. Thank you for listening to the Gritty History Podcast, brought to you by the City of Hamilton and Hamilton Civic Museums. This episode was hosted by Meredith Leonard and Russ Piva. Produced and edited by Stereo Russ Media. Original music by Emma Whale. This series' episodes were recorded at CFMU Studios at McMaster University, Catherine North Studios, and Bridgeworks. If you enjoyed listening, please share this podcast with someone who loves all things Hamilton and history. Please rate, review, and subscribe. If you'd like to explore more, you can visit us online at hamiltoncivicmuseums.ca. Thank you for listening.